What's up, everybody? We back. R2C2. Another week. What's good, guys?
Do we call it the last dance? See, is that what we call it for now?
The final week.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, man. We have come to this moment in time, and It's amazing when you think about it, dude. 6 years we've been doing this pod. Isn't it like at some point this year when I realized it was 6 years, I was like, wait, we've been doing it 6 years? That's a long time, man.
Yeah, a long time. It's crazy. I mean, a lot of shit has happened in between and all of that. I mean, I've retired, and it's just been, it's a lot of stuff that we've covered. Not personally. I mean, not only personally, but on this pod in the last 6 years. You got married, had a baby.
Yeah.
We went through a pandemic. You know what I'm saying? Like it was. I mean, it's been a good 6 years.
It has, man. It's been an amazing ride, and C and I talked about it a little bit last week. But I think just and C, you obviously can give your own reasons, but with our responsibilities now, both personally and professionally, it's just become hard to be able to continually produce the level of content that we want to. And I don't think either one of us ever wanted to keep recording on a once a week cadence if we didn't feel like we could produce the level of podcast that we had become accustomed to recording and our audience had become accustomed to hearing. So it just felt like a natural time to say, let's stop down here, All-Star break right now, and who knows what ends up happening from here. But it just felt like it kind of had to be done for both of us.
Yeah, for sure. And just like you said, just timing, scheduling, man. I've been more busy, in the last. I mean, I've been more busy as a retired player than I've ever been.
Yeah.
But just in the last 6 months, I've been more busy in my life, and I've been more busy than I've ever been in my life the last 6 months. So it's just getting harder and harder to schedule. And like you said, we have so many fans and so many people that are used to us giving this everything. It would be, it'd be hard not to, not be able to dedicate the time to the fans and give them the level of, talking shit that they're used to.
Exactly, man. Exactly. So, and we're going to get to, I know a lot of fans sending questions and we got some amazing messages, but just to take a journey back in time, see, if you think about it, I can remember you talk about different, things we've been through in our lives over the 6 years we've done this. I can remember being on the phone, walking my old apartment on the Upper East Side, which I've since sold and not lived in years since I think I sold it in April of 2019 or something. And I can remember being on the phone with you calling me up and us having an hour-long conversation about what the pod would look like if we were going to do it. You had texted me and been like, hey, cuz, it's time for us to do this pod. And I'm like, okay, now? And you're like, yeah, no, now. I didn't know if you meant after you're done playing or whatever, but I remember us having that conversation, obviously, seeing us both having a very similar vision for it, right? We wanted something where we could story tell, where you could see people's personalities, that wasn't gotcha culture. And one thing that I'm so glad, you were insistent upon was starting it then while you were still playing, because that really took us inside, a couple amazing Yankee runs as well. And the heartbeat of the clubhouse and of the journey of a 162 season. And it was, now there's so many athlete driven pods, see, but at that time it was really road tripping with Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye, and then us. There really wasn't. Yeah. I don't even know if maybe JJ had started his pod, but I'm not even sure if he had yet. And we were, one of the first to kind of do that. And I'm so glad that you had the vision to say, hey, let's do this now.
No, I definitely remember having that conversation and, having a conversation of wanting it not to be like talk radio.
Yes.
Remember that was a big deal, that we just wanted it to be something that people can listen to, have fun, and feel like they're a part of the conversation. I feel like we accomplished that.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I feel like we accomplished a lot of that, and I feel like that's why people are still so attached to the pod 6 years later. But I just remember, starting it in 2017, and that being really like a big comeback year for me. So to be able to like talk through everything and talking to teammates, and we went on that real deep run in the playoffs. I think actually starting the podcast kind of helped that. You know what I mean? And being able to talk through kind of the season was pretty dope. So, if you go back and listen to those podcasts, it was a pretty cool time because that was when I really grasped my cutter and was figuring out how to really pitch. You know what I'm saying? And I was on my way to 3,000 strikeouts, so it was kind of a cool moment that we started at that time, and we have it documented.
That actually is a great point, man. I was thinking about this earlier, how in 2016, you weren't yet, you had a good year, right? But it wasn't, we didn't know yet, like, oh, is this going to be a renaissance? Is this going to be sort of the final chapter of your career, which of course you ended up having whatever it was, 3 or 4 really successful seasons in a row at the end. Man, thank God you did pitch well, because they would have shut this pod down real quick if you hadn't in 2017.
Yeah, Cass would have been like, "Yeah, nah, enough of that bullshit for sure."
Yeah, those words don't sound so good with a 6 ERA.
But it was good though. I mean, we got a lot of guests. We got a lot of people that were that we played against. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like being at the stadium so much, like it was cool, and it was really extensions of our conversations because we were together a lot back then because you was in the clubhouse every day and I was playing. So we saw each other. So a lot of our conversations we were actually having in the clubhouse would spilling over to the pod. So it was a real like perfect connection at the time for us to just interview people, and I feel like we disarmed a lot of people. People didn't really understand what a podcast was back then, or like what we were trying to do, or what it was going to be like to come on a podcast, especially with me. Especially my friends, they were like, I mean, what the, you know what I'm saying? Like, what am I getting myself into? Because I know, because they know my, behind the scenes, how I actually really talk ends up, being how I talk on the podcast. But I think we disarmed a lot of people, and it helped out that me and you were so close at the time when we started seeing each other every single day being in the clubhouse.
I couldn't agree more, man. And especially, and look, it's been harder to record pods when guests aren't in the same spot as you, right? Like we've dealt with that.
And obviously, going through the pandemic, we really, it was the only way to record, and it was a great way to record back then. But we had better chemistry when we were in the same building, and we were finding times to be able to record in the studio.
It's so true. And I think the last pod we recorded in person with a guest was with Josh Donaldson last year, I think. And
oh man, I don't even remember that.
I think it was, and I just remember being like, wow, this feels amazing. And I think that's part of it too, right? See, is the experience for you and me, and the joy of the pod, and also the quality of what we get. While it's still high when we're in 2 different locations, and you and I obviously like have gotten a cadence down, and guests have gotten used to it, but it's just a completely different experience that's sitting there in person. And you're right. In 2017, 2018, 2019, I'm in the clubhouse with you. We would plan our podcast around series I was doing, or times at the stadium where I'm going in, road trips. Yeah. Like, and we're sitting in the press box booth, or in the Yankees press conference room, or the visiting clubhouse, or the auxiliary clubhouse, or never forget Reggie Jackson turning to me, "Who's this sitting here in the auxiliary clubhouse?" And you being like, "Stop, you know exactly who he is." But I think you're right. No, like that's hard. That's been harder too.
Yeah, and even think about some of the places we got to record, like in the city. We were finding little studios, and even a place down in Tampa where we had, Siegel and Matt Siegel and Samir Hernandez were with us. So it was cool, finding those little places, and the people that would be around doing those recordings when we did them live. I mean, I was at the All-Star game. Yesterday was today. Yesterday, I'm in Tahoe today, but I was at the All-Star game, and a guy came up to me and was like, "Man, I was at the live show you guys did at T-Mobile when we did the T-Mobile
in
live
Anaheim,
show.
in LA last year. Oh,
in
nice.
LA last year. So,
Yeah.
being live, and having people, around is definitely a great effect.
And see, speaking of where we started our journey, it was at Players Tribune, and it was funny because you and I on that phone call, that initial phone call, we both thought Players Tribune is where we should do it because your relationship with Derek. We also knew that they would like the idea of athlete driven and not just trying to make mountains out of molehills, but really trying to, storytell and get to know personalities and just talk. And then we had, other common touch points working there at the time. Sadie Zillow, who, was with us throughout the entire thing. And we both owe so much to. Sadie was she was our third musketeer for the vast majority of our R2C2 journey. Took her from Players Tribune to Uninterrupted to Spotify to Homeless for the last year. And she's just been, I know she has R2C2 blood running through her veins. It was just incredible to us in the pod. And we love you, Sadie. And she was at Players Tribune, and then Sarah Flynn was there. We were friends with.
She was at the time. Absolutely, I forgot about that.
And now she's like running Boardroom with Rich and KD. And then the two guys we worked with early on, Corey Miller, who had just graduated Fordham and WFUV, and Carl Scott, who now is running Meadowlarks podcasts. And Carl, my gosh, Carl is a total superstar. Unbelievable, man. Yeah. Unbelievable. Let me tell you, if we ever do something again, we're bringing Carl.
Yeah. Hey, I remember Carl in that podcast when we had A-Rod up in the warehouse. Remember that?
Yes.
And I think I dropped the F-bomb, and then A-Rod dropped like 13 F-bombs right in a row. Yes. And Carl looked at me, he was like, he was like,
it's amazing. It was like A-Rod had been liberated from all these like language restraints his whole life. Yeah. Like, wait, I can actually curse here. Remember, he was just like finding. There was no reason for those F-bombs.
He just finding random
F-bombs. He was like, "Oh, I could do this. Okay, all right, got it." Oh my gosh, man. Yeah. It was so.
I'll never forget the look on Carl's face during that pod. That was funny.
So funny, man. That was so funny. So shout out to those guys, and we had a great relationship and run there, and then we moved on to Uninterrupted, and we got to do some really fun, unique shows on the road there. Going to spring training. Shout out to TD at Uninterrupted and all he did with us, and John Fontanella, who produced us for a while, a great guy. And we went to, doing the spring training shows. Also, the way they put in resources for the video aspect of things, see? And I'm thinking about, remember when we did coordinating with the MLBPA and Uninterrupted, we did those episodes of The Shift. And how about us sitting down with Mookie Betts and David Price before a Yankees-Red Sox game and doing a joint Yankees-Red Sox pod the day of a game?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's just stuff that, that's what I'm saying. Like, that was stuff that wasn't happening, Yankees-Red Sox on the pod, or, even for a long time, you wanted me to get Bo Bichette and Vladdy and all those guys. Yeah. And I was like, nah, I can't do that.
Yeah. You were like, the Blue Jays, too much bad blood there. Yeah.
But no, it was it ended up being pretty cool having a chance to have guys on that weren't necessarily on our team. And then DP came on a couple of different times. Mook's been a guest a couple of different times. So yeah, I mean, Uninterrupted kind of took us to the next level, especially with the video and stuff.
Yeah, which was great. I mean, even I'm thinking about, we had I think one of our most viewed things to this day is the pod we did with Sonny and Trevor Bauer about the Astros scandal and how incredible they were. I mean, just incredible. And by the way, speaking of Carl, he tweeted at us when we tweeted this was going to be our last show, at least for the time being. He said, sad day. I want to thank you both for trusting me to help bring the original vision for the show to life. It was a career highlight, great talent, even greater humans. If you ever need anything, hit me. Well, Carl, we just may hit you someday. So, stay by the phone. But yeah, man, I mean, even just like, and then obviously after Uninterrupted, we go to Spotify and The Ringer, and it was kind of a chaotic move because it was during COVID where we actually thought something else was going to happen, and then COVID hit and whatever. And see, you mentioned it, and we're going to read some comments in a moment. Like for people, those days, when we first got to Spotify and The Ringer, and we were recording all during the pandemic, like people really connected with those episodes, and we're just glad to have some sense of normalcy.
Yeah, for sure. And for us, you know what I mean? To be able to talk I mean, at that time you were nuts on Twitter, you know what I mean? You had all the info and shit, so you were keeping people up on what's going on. And you were keeping me up on what's going on. I didn't have all the info that you had, so it was like it was good. So it was cool to be able to talk through all of that shit with everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like we were all going through it at the same time, and just trying to figure out ways to cope, and that was ours. You know what I'm saying? So to be able to connect with people through that in that tough time and through that tough time was something that I was always trying to do. Whether it was me and Amber passing out food in the Bronx, or doing the stuff that we did with the podcast and doing all the stuff we do with the foundation, just kind of ratcheted up during the pandemic. So that was the way that I was dealing with, everything that was going on, was by trying to help as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's so well said, man. And it's so true. Like it did give us a feeling of normalcy. And it's hilarious that you bring that up because I was reading scientific preprints.
Oh no, you was fucking nuts with this shit. It was crazy. I can say that now because you know what I mean. We can look back on it and laugh, but it was always dedicated 5 minutes at the end of the pod. You gonna give us the fucking what's been the latest for the last week.
It's so funny. I really did, man. And what's so funny is like even now, some people will like ask me things about like different questions, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not a virologist anymore. I've been out of that game for a while.
You cannot do that because you can't be all the way in and then just shut it down like that. That'd be like me giving up golf. That'd be like me giving up golf right now. Like that's how deep you were into that shit. Like how I am with golf right now.
True. But the pandemic ended. The courses are still open.
That's true.
So there's a difference. And see, like just thinking about some of our guests, like people ask like, oh, what's your favorite show? And like, there's so many different moments and memories. I think what was amazing is you talked about it. We disarmed our guests, right? And I give you the largest, or I give you such credit for that because you're a unique combination of being this unbelievably credentialed athlete with everything that you achieved in your career, but then also having this way of being incredibly authentic always. And I think that disarms people. It's not just like, oh, Cece's got a good personality, which you do, but it's that you're you. You're always you. You're always genuine. You don't chameleon for a room. And I think that's very unique. Yeah, man, it's true. And I think it's unique. And I think that the guest feels comfortable with that. And when you're like that, you can talk up or down, right? Whether Alex Rodriguez is on the pod, or Michael Vick, or a utility infielder, or Denzel. We didn't get him, but you know what I'm saying? You're just going to be you. And I think that helped disarm people. And I'm just like looking at our guest list and the moments that come to mind. Like think about our first pod with Aaron Judge down in spring training, and him revealing he wouldn't do the home run derby again, and us breaking that news. But
like, what was crazy? Like every time we broke news, I didn't even think we were like breaking news. I always felt like every time I seen like the pod in the post, I'd be like, damn, we getting in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like we breaking news and shit. It was crazy how much traction a lot of our stuff got just through genuine conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's true. That's what was so nice is we never went into a pod thinking, and some people tried to get us to go these routes at times, but we never went into a pod thinking, if we're going to ask this, then we're going to get this response. We're like, no, we're just going to have a conversation. Of course, there's timely things that came up and would come up, but we never went in with a goal other than having a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was one of my favorite guests was the guy from Billions.
Oh, Brian Koppelman. He was fantastic.
Fantastic. That was one of my favorite podcasts.
He was so good. He was so good. It's funny, man. I was just looking at that list. Yeah, that's what was fun, right? We kind of baseball was our tent pole, but we were able to branch out into other sports. Me and you were such huge sports fans, and then of course entertainment as well. And Brian Koppelman kind of fit into both worlds. Even like when we did those early pods with Jerry Ferrara, Jerry was so good. He was great. We had, dude, one of my favorite pods was us doing the Game of Thrones episode. The Game of Thrones.
It was great because Tommy fucking froze, man. And that's like, it was epic. Like, I got to go back and watch that because it was, I've never seen him get that quiet in my life. He's never done that before.
It's so funny. And Talkman was a maester. Talkman was, oh my gosh. He was so like detailed on everything, incredible. And it was just amazing having six of your teammates at once. Everybody's a big Game of Thrones fan, and we all were making our predictions for the finale. It was so cool, man.
Yeah, and I feel like it got to let people see how close we get. You know what I'm saying? Like as teammates, and like how interested we are in things outside of baseball. You know what I'm saying? We get just as passionate about Game of Thrones as we do about the World Cup, or anything that our clubhouse is into. Like we're all 25 guys into it, and that was a cool little window look into that.
It really was, man. I'm just looking at some of the names. I'm not going to list them all because obviously we've had a lot of guests over 6 years. But of course, we started our pod with Derek Jeter. Think about a couple episodes we've done with Michael Strahan that were amazing. I mean, Adam Jones was a favorite.
Adam was good. The G podcast was great because he told that story about me ghosting him for his golf event. And that shit is a true story, guys. Like,
you know what's so funny is it really lays the foundation for nobody to ever feel bad about being ghosted by CC Sabathia.
And it's the very first pod. You know what I mean? Like, it's the very first podcast, and it's Derek Jeter telling you a story. I mean, about who the fuck I actually really
am. which I don't even, instead of me telling everybody the story, I think what I'm going to say is go back. Now, because we migrated the way that we did, there are 3 different feeds which have R2C2. There's our original RSS feed, which is the Players Tribune one. That's where the Jeter episode is. You can go back to listen to that and hear that story. Then there's the Uninterrupted one. And then there's our Spotify Ringer one, which we owned and still have. It's also part of the reason why if we ever wanted to come back or wanted to do a one-off or wanted to executive produce someone else hosting a pod, we own the RSS feed. And by we, I mean Amber Sabathia. But we own the RSS feed. So everybody stays subscribed because you just never know. But yeah, dude, that's so funny. Derek told that story, and forevermore I was like, well, if he doesn't get back to me, I'm just in the same camp as Derek Jeter, so it's okay, man. So many. I remember that up with Albert Pujols, with you and Albert in the stadium. I was somewhere else, but gosh, I remember you guys talked like 7 minutes straight off the top without me even jumping in and just going back and forth, and it was incredible. Just think about the insiders we've gotten: Woj, and Bobby Marks, and Zach Lowe, and Stephen A, and Malika, and Mark Jackson, and Adam Schefter, and Kenny Smith.
Van Gundy was one of our best.
Oh, dude, Van Gundy telling the Scorpion story is just incredible.
Legendary shit.
Legendary, man, really is. So just some awesome memories. And see, I thought, we should. And you know what? Also, one other thing too. Think about some of the timely stuff too. Darren Waller, right as soon as he signed with the Giants or got traded to the Giants. Monty, right after he got traded. Judge, the one interview he did before free agency. Rob Thompson and Dusty Baker right before the World Series. It's the timing, the timeliness was really there too. But I wanted to just read a couple comments from people that I just thought were really nice, man. And take some questions as well. Let's start with the questions. Moshi K says, CC, toughest hitter you ever faced?
Toughest hitter I ever faced is I'll go to Evan Longoria and Manny Ramirez.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Matt Bono, with the news that Yankee hitting coach Dylan Lawson was let go, how big of an impact can a hitting or pitching coach have for an MLB club? Of course, we know Sean Casey is the new Yankee hitting coach now.
Yeah, no, I think it has a huge impact, especially having a guy that played in the big leagues and went to battle, and that was a pretty good hitter. So, the more guys that played in the big leagues that you can have around big league players, the better for your team.
Will Harrison asked me, what's the main difference mindset switch that goes into calling an MLB versus an NBA game? I would say, the biggest difference is in basketball, it's just very much action focused and action heavy. And there's no, other than free throws, and sometimes you're reading promos during that, there's not necessarily natural moments to tell stories. And so you really have to be careful with how you weave them in so you don't get caught missing the amplification of a big play or whatever might be going on the floor. In baseball, there's just much more storytelling, and it is much more about the dialogue with your analyst, and that really is the broadcast, and the action is the sideshow to that. It's not the main thing. Now, the pitch clock has changed it a little bit because you can't get into quite as much, and the action is more...
Which is great.
Great. When the action is much more, forward-facing. It's part of the reason why this year, when Jeff Nelson lost his voice, and Meredith and I did a game and a half without a color commentator, I wasn't as concerned with that because I knew, first of all, I wouldn't have ultimately been that concerned anyway, but especially with the pitch clock, you knew you're kind of flowing more just with the action. Yeah. So that's kind of what I would say.
For me, the basketball game is way easier to call because you're just watching the action.
You know what? And you've called them both, so you know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we still got to get you back. That's what's next for C. The reason the pod's ending is CC is joining the Yes Network. He's going to do 120 games a season. And
never.
I hope someone clips that off and thinks it's serious. I'm going to get C in the booth with me at some point. I don't know how, but at some point for a game or two. All right. Michael Scott Rosen and Mike Carranza asked me, what is my favorite call in my broadcast career and what's CC's favorite call of him in his? Oh, that's interesting. Not of me, of you, but someone else of you or anybody of you. I would say my favorite call, I had some Caitlin Clark ones during the Final Four this year that I liked a lot, that I just felt like they just kind of felt like timely. And then the perfect game call the other day, like the final out.
That was fire, bro.
Thank you, man. Yeah,
the perfect game. And then you had another one, the Hicks catch.
Yes, the Hicks catch in Minnesota. Yeah.
And then you have a Judge Homer.
Judge Homer in Seattle. Those would be my favorite.
Judge Homer in Seattle was fire too. That was the one he almost hit out of this motherfucker.
Yeah, it was the only time in my life I saw baseball in flight and thought, that's going to leave the stadium.
That might go. Yeah. I thought somebody was going to do that in the home run derby too, but that ball he hit was further than any ball that was hitting the home run derby.
Which is so crazy when you think about it, man. Crazy. How about C, as a player, is there a call of somebody calling something you did that you can remember?
Yeah, I never thought about that. That's a great question, but it would be that Brewers complete game at the end of the season that Brian Anderson called when I got the double play.
Yeah.
Like, that was sick. I watched that the other day, and that was pretty sick.
Dude, I watched that the other day, too, because it was like the anniversary of you being traded there, I think, right? And
yeah, that's exactly what it was, yeah.
Yeah. And I was looking at your numbers again from that run. It really is absurd, man. Like, would you have, 7 complete games and 3 shutouts and an ERA of 1.65?
I was locked in. Everybody was like, why'd you pitch so much? I kept telling everybody, bro, this shit's going to make me more money. I'm telling you.
Man, my gosh. There are so many good questions here. We cannot get to them all, but we'll get to a few more, and then we're going to read some fan messages because there were just some really, really kind messages. Mike Schubert asks you, Cece, was there ever a significant moment where you made a big adjustment and things started clicking, much like Volpe's first post-chicken parm dinner surge?
I mean, there was a bunch of times. I mean, throughout a 19-year career, there's a bunch of different moments where, when I figured out my changeup when I was in Cleveland, when I figured out my slider when I was in Cleveland, I won the Cy Young the next year. When I got my two-seamer, games became easier to complete. And that was in Milwaukee. There's always different times where you click, and it just propels you forward till you hit another speed bump, and then you got to figure some shit out again. You got to make an adjustment. That's baseball. And I think the last one would be getting the cutter. Figuring that out and being able to pitch those last, 4 or 5 years of my career. So, there's always different times where you have to adjust and it'll click. And this won't be the last time both you'll have struggles and, figure some shit out and it'll click. And then, like I said, it'll happen again.
Take a couple more here. See, Sean Ryan, Tariq Turner, and Uncle Jesse. Nice of him to chime in. Big Full House fan. Who asked both of us? Who's the one guest you wish you could have had on the pod but didn't?
Shaq.
And we almost had Shaq. Almost had Shaq. Yeah, Shaq would have been amazing. Shaq. I still haven't watched the Shaq doc, but it's supposed to be incredible.
Shaq doc is really good.
Yeah. By the way, I'm so excited for the world to see the Sue doc. It's so good, man. It is so good. Like,
I'm excited for it.
It's going to be awesome, man. Yeah, it's going
to
be
excited for you guys for that. That's cool.
Yeah, we'll have to do a good premiere too. I think, it's funny because like Andy Pettit is my favorite athlete of all time. We had Andy on. Also, like, you obviously have a close relationship with Andy. He's very friendly to me, like, through the Yankee circles. Like, so he would have been the one, but we got him on. Derek would have been next, but we got him on, I think I'd say actually LeBron. Because we thought we were getting him when we went to uninterrupted. It didn't happen. And I think it would have been, I think he's a really interesting conversation in formats like this, and I think that would have been great. All right.
Hey, I started laughing when you said Andy, because Amber just said right now, Andy just texted me and said you're ghosting him, so you better call him back. So I'm glad you said that, because when I leave right now, I'm going to call Andy.
Yeah, that's great. Tell Andy I said hello.
But at least he knows who to actually text. He texts Amber and be like, tell C to call me.
That's right. That's how you get stuff done for C. If you want C, you go to Amber.
Everybody knows that.
Yes. Ja Bucks says, if you only had one burning question to ask on the pod, what would it be and for whom? Ooh, that's interesting.
That is interesting. I don't know what that would be. Can you answer that?
One thing I am wondering about is, does Derek want to get back involved in a more intimate way with the Yankees? That would be something, because he kind of hinted at it a year ago. Now he's doing TV. He's doing great, by the way. He's been fantastic on Fox.
Yeah.
Like I kind of would be curious about that. But I don't know if there's something. Eminem was the other guest I always wanted.
Definitely.
That would have been I don't know if there's like one question I want to ask him though. I wouldn't mind asking. Like, I'm trying to think Star Wars related. If there was someone, like if we got Jon Favreau on, like if he already knows how the intersection of Ahsoka, which comes out in August, by the way, Mandalorian, Boba Fett, how that's going to end. Like, does he already know, or is it kind of just unfolding?
I feel like that's more like a question for you anyway, because that's more like a journalist question. You know what I'm saying?
You're right. Do you have one?
No, because if I just ask a motherfucker, if I feel like I need to ask somebody something.
Yeah, it's true. That's a good way to go about it. Oh, it's a good question though from Ja Bucks. And then I thought this was a good question. We can end on this one and then read some fan messages. Bronx Bulletin says, CeCe, your openness about struggles with addiction and journey to sobriety is inspiring. how difficult is it to maintain sobriety in retirement? How has it impacted your overall well-being? Any advice you would give to those facing a similar situation?
Man, I just told somebody this the other day because All Star, I was all over the place, and I probably was getting 2-3 hours of sleep a night. And
Oh,
I think I was talking to Edwin and Adam Jones, and I was like, man, if I was still drinking, I would be dead by now. And that sounds crazy because I'm 43 years old, but the amount of alcohol that I drank and the way that it was affecting my body, yeah, nah, the way I move around and the stuff I'm able to do, the jobs that I have, alcohol would definitely hinder all of that. So, I stay sober by staying busy, being on the golf course. I know that sounds crazy because a lot of people drink on the golf course, but I'm always out there and I don't. And man, it's weird because 8 years ago, I never would have thought that I'd be in a place where I just don't see alcohol ever being in my life. Who knows what the future holds? Is one day at a time, obviously, and all of that. I mean, but um, I just don't ever think about alcohol as much as I did. You know what I'm saying? As much
yeah.
as it was a factor in my life. So, yeah, I'm thankful that I had the time. I'm thankful for the Yankees. I'm thankful to the Steinbrenner organization, Brian Cashman, Joe Girardi, Dylan Betances, Chris Young, because when Chad Bowling, because that day that I made that decision, they all had my back. And, it allowed me to go in there and get myself right and get my mind right and, save my family and still be here and be a dad and a husband and be a part of my family. So I owe all of, this now what I have in the second half of my life or my retirement to all of those people I just named. So, that's what keeps me sober, staying sober for them and, that belief that they had in me that I could do it. And at a time when, the team probably needed me most. So, I'll forever be grateful.
That was super powerful, man, and good for you. See, it really is amazing, man, and it is inspirational. And I'm listening to you say that, and I'm like, this is why people are so upset with the pod going away because it's like it's just I really do think it's offered really interesting perspectives and just hearing you speak there is another reminder of that. And good for you, man. It really is amazing. See, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Just to read a few fan messages, and let me just say first, like the outpouring of love has been amazing. Obviously, we can't sit here and read 55 messages or 155 or 1,000, but we see them all and they hit. And thank you to everybody because they really have been incredible. The Jacob Westendorf said, just wanted to say, I love the group chat you two are in. That was or still is named That's For You, Bitch. We'll miss the show. Got a lot of appreciation for both of you. It is still named that. It's still named that. Yeah. With Matt Neimer, Matt Siegel, Brian Axelrod, CC, and me. C, did you ever reveal who the bitch was in That's For You, Bitch?
No, and nobody ever really needs to know. Not the public. What's crazy is that, huh?
Do you want to give that to the audience in the final episode?
No, not at all. What's crazy is that, remember what I said though when that happened? I was embarrassed about that. I remember I was like, I didn't want that to be how I was remembered as a Yankee.
Yeah.
I was like after when I did it in the moment, everybody knew I was going to do it, and I did it. Like it happened, but then like after that, like I was so embarrassed, guys. And then everybody came in, and everybody was like hyped and giving me hugs and shit. And I was like, all right, it's cool. But like I was such in a weird place. Like after it happened, and then until after the game, and everybody came in, and it was cool. But for those like 4 innings, that's how the group chat started. Because those 4 innings, I was on my phone after I got thrown out the game.
Yes, I remember you texted us.
Remember that? Yeah.
Come in there, man. Oh,
and I was like, I don't want that to be remembered. I don't want to be remembered like a Yankee. That's all. I don't want that to be like how I'd be remembered as a Yankee. But now it's actually pretty cool.
I'm pretty sure people are going to remember 2009 and a lot of other moments along with that. I'm going to remember you literally giving your gosh darn shoulder on the mound in your final game, trying to throw another warm-up pitch. It's fun. Like, I remember I was sitting there, I was emotional, like watching you walk off the mounds. Like, I was there at that game as a fan with my family, and I was like, my gosh, he literally gave his arm. Like, people talk about it, he actually did. That was crazy.
The only way I was gonna stop.
It was amazing. All right, two more that we'll read. Craig Palmer Jr. said, love listening to the realness that CeCe always brought to the podcast. One of my favorite Yankee moments was when CeCe threw away his bonus money to stand up for his catcher after he'd been drilled by Tampa. You could see why his teammates loved him, and he brought that fire to R2C2. So there you go. And then this message comes from Abraham Almanza. He says, been listening since episode 1. Got to yell out, rate, review, subscribe when CeCe was dressed up as Yoda on his bobblehead night, and even put together a Ryan Star Wars Jedi bobblehead during the pandemic. But honestly, the best part of the journey was that it happened. You guys truly brought a perspective and joy to the medium that others are now trying to replicate. You weren't the first to do it, but you were the best. Thank you for bringing us closer to our sports heroes and for making us feel like we were part of the group chat. I'll miss it all. It really was the highlight of my week as I drove into work. Ryan, you said 6 years ago. You said 6 years was a long time, but it wasn't enough. Happy to have been a listener since day one, and will continue to follow in however form it takes place in the future. Thank you for everything. That's a really nice message.
Oh, that was fire. That is.
Abraham, my gosh, you got me. You're giving me chills, man. That was a really nice message. See, the outpouring of comments, just amazing, incredible. Special thanks to some people who are on with us right now. Jackson Safon, who helped us a ton, especially during our transition away from the Ringer. Where we were, for, I guess we were 2 years with Bill Simmons, and TD went over there. Thanks to everybody at the Ringer. And then we went, independent, and Jackson was with us the whole way. Jackson does Draymond Green's pod. So go ahead and listen to that pod. Jackson's amazing. Paige Keffer, who came on as our guest booker just in the midnight hour of the pod, but was unbelievable. Like, unbelievable.
All the last 8 weeks of guests that everybody's been excited about has all been paid.
And then Ata Movasaji, who has been just a critical piece of the pod for years for us, does so much with you guys as a family, seeing your social media and everything, and has been a critical voice. And he's basically taken on any role that the pod needed to keep it afloat for years, and his dedication and passion behind the quality of the content has been absolutely inimitable. And we're so grateful for Ata and everything he's brought to the table. And dude, besides thanking you, I got to thank Amber too. Amber is the one who got us on the air. Like, if there's no Amber, there's just no way that the pod goes. And so thank you to Amber for everything she's done. And hey, see, man, it's been so fun. What's nice is there was no Beatles fracture. There's no, Yoko Ono. Me and you still have our friendship, and the doors. It's funny because people always wonder, oh, something happened. No, nothing happened. C and I are as good as ever. It's just where our lives are right now. But C, thank you, man, for this journey. I love you, and we'll, I know we're going to intersect in different ways. And of course, just to remind the audience, they can see me doing games on ESPN, doing games on the Yes Network, women's college basketball, WNBA, NBA, Nets, Yankees. C on MLB Network with everything he's doing. Also see everything you're doing with the commissioner. I did want to mention that quickly. It really seems like you're very involved in the league office now.
Yeah, man, and that's kind of what's taken over my life is being involved in the game and on a large scale. So having a chance to be in a league office and have a role and it's been a lot of fun. I never thought that I would work at MLB as a player. It's something that you don't ever think about. But I think for players to see me working in an office, I think it's something that they can see. And now Pujols is there. We got Jimmy Rollins up there. Adam Jones. So we built a nice little roster up there. That's really passionate about the game and guys that play the game at a high level. You know what I mean? Albert Pujols is the Hall of Famer. Jimmy Rollins is the Hall of Famer too. I think in my eyes. So To have those guys working in the office, Raul Ibanez, it's been great.
Well, people have to stay subscribed because, you know, when you go into the hall, see, if we haven't brought it back in some form by then, we might have to just do a one-off special show.
Do a pod. For sure.
We'll do a Hall of Fame show.
And maybe that'll be like a show or a video. You know what I mean? We'll get other people to come on, or you know, we'll do something like that.
Get some sponsors, get some dough. Sounds good. We can make.
You got to talk to all your writer friends and make sure I get in, bro. That's.
Hey, I will be politicking them. All my writer friends say they have no doubt you will. So let's hope. Right, let's hope they're right. You deserve it. See, it's been a fun journey, man. We'll see where it goes from here, man.
Yeah, for sure, bro. Love you, bro.
Love you too, man. And thank you to the audience. Thank you for everything. You guys are simply amazing. It always makes us feel so good when you come up to us, say how much you love the pod. The good news is the pods live forever, so you can always go back and listen to other ones and stay tuned to see what happens next. Peace, everybody.
Peace.